Really dope, Sunday afternoon, making maple syrup in our garage from trees in the yard. It's wild. Welcome back to another episode of Out There JCH. I'm your host, Jonathan C. Hall. Today's episode is part 2 of the Sugaring While Black series. If you haven't watched part 1, where I tap trees and collect sap, click the link and check it out. For this episode, I'll be boiling down the collected sap to make maple syrup. The process is simple and straightforward, but requires a fair amount of time and patience. I began the boiling process after we collected about 120 liters of sap from the 3 sugar maples in our yard. Boiling down took about 8 hours using a dual burner propane grill stove, and later, as you'll see, finishing the sap on the stove inside the house. The smell was delicious, like nothing I had expected. A combination of familiar syrup smells, but with elements I can't really describe other than, this is what a sugar maple tree smells like. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I wish that you could smell what this sap boiling down smells like, because it's wild. When it first got started, it was just like water with like a nice earthy scent, but now it's really starting to smell sweet. Like I can smell the sugar starting to get some color to it. You might be able to see it's looking like cloudy. Okay, and even in the cast iron, you can see it's starting to take on more color. But it smells amazing. 140 minutes in, we probably, when it's all said and done, in about 3 hours, I think we'll probably have boiled down about 25 liters of sap. So this setup is really working well. Stuff is boiling down really quick. I got down to more than half of the water boiled off of this cast iron pot in about an hour. We'll probably start adding to this pot here, bring this pot inside, and finish on the stove. Got a lot of stuff going on today. Sunday cooking and all this good stuff, but this is incredible. Like, it's just so dope to be making this. I don't know how much longer the propane is gonna last. I probably should pick it up and see how much is left in there, but this is relatively easy stuff. All right, so it is 5 hours later. About 32 to 35 quarts is now down to the final 8. So that's almost a reduction of 5 times. But as you can see, it's starting to really take on a nice color and smell. So we're gonna boil this down even more, hoping to get almost a quart of syrup, which not too shabby for a day's work, and really just a day's burning. So it's coming along nicely. Sugaring while black. The first 2 stages of this final boil down look and sound familiar to a normal reduction. But things get really interesting in this final stage, where the liquid takes on the look and sound of actual boiling syrup. Check it out. Okay, so the next stage of this process is where things get a little squirrely. Boiling on the propane stove left bits of solidified sugar in the syrup that I wanted to filter out, but I didn't have a proper syrup filter, so I decided to use coffee filters instead. This worked well at the beginning, but eventually the filters got caked with little molecules of sugar that slowed things down to a literal trickle. The MVP of this filtering stage has to be the 4-quart saucepan. This one I'm using from Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is not a sponsor of this video, but maybe one day. Anyway, this saucepan has both a lip around the rim that makes pouring less messy and a second grip handle, which makes controlled pouring so much easier. I highly, highly recommend a saucepan like this. At the end of the day, I ended up using 3 coffee filters, and the whole process took about an hour. You can keep maple syrup in the fridge for months, but if you want to store it in the pantry, you'll need to can it. This process is easy though, as all you'll need to seal your jars are fresh canning lids, clean jars, and the heat from the syrup fresh from the stove. Just pour, screw on the lid, and wait for the lids to pop, indicating that they've sealed. Easy work.
You know what we could not have done? Is this in Morgantown with all those sugar ants.
Oh my goodness.
Would have been like...
So almost 120 liters of sap boiled down to about 1 1/4 quarts of syrup. Not too shabby for a day's work. I boiled down 2 more batches of sap and ended up with a little more than 5 quarts from about 300 liters of collected sap, most of which we shared with friends and family. How did it taste? It was quite simply the best tasting maple syrup I've ever had in my entire life. Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for part 3, where I'll discuss how much this whole process cost, as well as a breakdown of the benefits and drawbacks to sugaring from your yard. See you next time.